I didn't see that coming days in my life, in my career. On one day, he told me, you're hired. I'm going to hire you. I'm going to let you learn property management. And 2 years to the day from now, you're fired. It was that you talk about jumping out without a parachute. The financial markets melted down in September, October. And I thought, what have I done? I think the two of us tried to stay lighthearted and laugh as much as we could. One of the things that I tell anybody, no matter what kind of business you're in, is learn to raise money. I talked to 19 banks. My 19th bank gave me a yes after 18 banks had said no on my very first deal ever. We have done a lot of deals where we have had limited partners and JV partners. That one we didn't. And we didn't have a lot of our own money either because we'd spent most of it, right? We were upside down. When you realize that broke doesn't mean zero, it means a big negative number. You know, you feel better when you're selling something that truly is a little unique. The model or what you're presenting to the marketplace is unique, that it catches their attention. Maybe they've never heard of it before. I started, the seeds of that really were kind of, underground, but getting root early in my career. And I just knew it was going to take time. It took a lot longer than I thought it would before I jumped out and did that. There were some interesting, I didn't see that coming days in my life, in my career, that really, a couple of them I can think that were very pivotal, that opened doors that I never saw coming, and it led me to where I am today. If you're just out there swinging the bat enough, you're eventually you're gonna hit something. Yeah. And you don't always know exactly what's coming. My first job, it was my dad who gave it to me, right? He told me, this is kind of a nepotism thing here. The partners in the firm are not going to be too happy about this. On one day, he told me, you're hired. I'm going to hire you. I'm going to let you learn property management. And 2 years to the day from now, you're fired. That was it. And he said, it's an internship, right? You can't stay long term. You've got to go do your own thing, but I can help you get your start. And so that was a huge blessing for me. While I was at that company, I learned property management, but I also started doing property leasing. That's a lot more of a sales job. Yeah. And so I really started learning that there. Foundationally, just like I said, hearing my dad, osmosis, you just hear it talked about all the time. And he was always very willing to coach me and teach me at a very young age. I tried to do the same thing with I've got 3 sons, and none of them went into the business, which is interesting. They all wanted to kind of go their own direction. My dad was always very willing to sit with me and talk with me and teach me and coach me. And of course, all of his examples, everything he taught me was what he knew. I think having that kind of a coach in your life, I know a lot of people don't have that. You don't necessarily have that in your family, but we can find mentors. We can find those people. And if it's not informally, it can be formally. Colleges have programs, communities have programs, Chamber of Commerces have programs where you can find mentorships. Absolutely. And I think people need to take more advantage of that, because again, when you hear a person tell you about their path, they teach you about patience. You learn about what it's like, what their path was, and not what you see on social media. A guy sitting inside of the cabin of a fake jet, acting like he's living the life, and it's not real anyway. Yeah, that's not where you want to learn. So it was one of those I didn't see that coming moments where I'd always wanted to get into construction and development, and I started to feel like at the age I was approaching 40. That it was about time. And I got a call from an owner, a partner in a commercial construction company in Dallas. And he asked me if I wanted to come on board and do business development for them. And they were a very successful company, very, very well known, particularly in office build out. And it was that you talk about jumping out without a parachute. It was kind of like everything I had built up to that point to be a broker, I left. And very suddenly left and made that decision very quickly. I was with them for about 3 years. I learned a lot in those 3 years, but I also learned how much I didn't know. And from there, I made the decision to come to Austin. Another kind of didn't see that moment coming. I was introduced to somebody who really understood the medical office park model, and it was not being done in Austin. And so about 3 years later, I cannonballed out again, moved to Austin, and started a medical office park development model. And I signed the agreements. Really, we kind of had a license agreement with this brand called Huffman Builders, and they were very good at doing that. I signed the agreement on April Fool's Day in '08, And then I moved my family in July, and then the financial markets melted down in September, October, and I thought, what have I done? I'll never survive this. And I almost didn't. About 3 or 4 years, the 3 or 4 years were really, really tough. I think the two of us tried to stay lighthearted and laugh as much as we could, and we kept hammering away. We kept thinking we were going to make it. We kept, one of the things that I tell anybody, in no matter what kind of business you're in, is learn to raise money. I talked to 19 banks. My 19th bank gave me a yes after 18 banks had said no on my very first deal ever. And it was a small deal, 7,000 square foot building that we were building for. We took a little suite in it for our own offices, and then we built for a dermatologist and a dentist. It's that, getting told no that many times and continuing to ask. And it's interesting how you kind of hone your craft, and then you just happen to have your pitch down well enough at the right moment. You find somebody who's, I'm going to say a bank who is also entrepreneurial. That sounds like a paradox, right? Mm-hmm. But we found one,
right?
And they said, we get it. We had a model, right? We had pre-sold to these doctors, so it certainly reduced the risk. It wasn't like we were building spec real estate. Mm-hmm. We had pre-sold to them, and we just talked to enough banks till we got a yes, and then the second deal was almost that hard. But we've learned to raise money. We've learned to bring in partners. We've learned to joint venture. We've learned, to tackle much, much bigger loans and much, much bigger projects, from, a 3/4 of an acre development to, 25 acre development. We've got 2 of those going right now that are mixed use developments. And we've learned to craft our model so that we can borrow money and reduce risk. We're really not a spec builder, spec developer, but we've learned how to go out and find deals in advance. I always call it selling air. It's easy to have an existing piece of real estate and tour somebody through it, and they decide if they like it or not, and then they buy it or lease it. It's a lot different when you point to a raw piece of land, mm-hmm. and you tell them what's going to be there, and you show them a rendering created by an architect, and try to convince them that, yes, it's going to look like this, and yes, we're going to pull this off, and it, even though it's 18 months from now, you should sign up right here, sign on the dotted line. And that took some learning. Again, a lot of no's, a lot of, you got to create faith and trust, because now we've done it. We have done a lot of deals where we have had limited partners and JV partners. That one we didn't. And we didn't have a lot of our own money either, because we'd spent most of it, right? We'd been living on what we had saved and borrowed money, and we'd borrowed from friends and family, and we were upside down. When you realize that broke doesn't mean zero, it means a big negative number. You've got that, you wake up every morning really motivated to fix that. So we would condo these buildings and these developments, and we would pre-sell them mostly to doctors. That began to change and morph a little over the years. If you could go out in those days and get it 50% pre-sold, with some experience and good credit, you could go borrow what you needed to close on the land, build the infrastructure, build the buildings, and even turnkey the medical interiors. And you could do that with 50% pre-sales and a pretty significant non-refundable deposit from those doctors. So that was our model. That's literally how we started. We started by going out. That was our first deal. Our first deal, we had 2 buyers on the hook, and they'd said, we like this location, we like the building you've designed, we want to be there, and we want to own. So we'll give you a deposit. I then had to go out and find that loan. I had to put a little bit of money in it, as did my partner, and we built it. And I don't think we made any money the first time.